If you asked Claire Martinez what her job was, she wouldn't say front desk clerk. She'd say standard keeper, the gatekeeper of perfection at the Magnolia Resort, the most luxurious retreat in Charleston. To Claire, every petal in the flower arrangements, every linen folded on the buffet, and every smile given to a guest were part of a grand orchestration of elegance. There was no room for mess, no odors, no unexpected characters. So when the automatic glass doors slid open and a man walked in, looking like he'd just tumbled out of a hiking documentary, disheveled hair, a thick beard, a ragged backpack that had clearly survived a war, and mud-splattered boots, Claire straightened instantly. No, absolutely not," she muttered under her breath. She moved from behind the desk with military precision, intercepting him before he could reach the heart of the marble lobby, where chandeliers sparkled and wealthy guests sipped chamomile under golden light. "Excuse me, sir," she said sweetly, though her tone had all the firmness of a bouncer. "Are you lost? There's a budget lodge just 6 blocks away. Very hiker-friendly." The man stopped. He was at least a head taller than her, with broad shoulders and a worn-out stance. But his presence was calm, grounded. His face, despite the beard and travel grime, had steel-gray eyes that were unusually gentle and clear. Claire hesitated. There was something about his expression, not evasive, not desperate, almost polite. "Are you looking for someone?" she asked, keeping her smile steady. "Or did you need directions?" "I'm actually hoping to check in," the man replied, adjusting the strap of his battered backpack. Claire blinked. She stared. Surely he didn't just say what she thought he said. "You want to stay here?" "If there's a room available," he said, not missing a beat. Claire glanced toward the tea lounge. Sure enough, Mrs. Calhoun, one of their most difficult VIPs, was already watching them, her nose wrinkled in disapproval. Claire tightened her grip on her notepad. "Sir," she said under her breath, "I'm afraid this establishment has certain dress expectations for guests. If you'd like, I can call you a cab or—" "I can afford the room," the man said calmly. "I'm not joking." There was something in the way he spoke, unapologetic, steady. Claire couldn't decide if he was a stubborn vagabond or just different. She sighed, conflicted. Part of her screamed, "This is not protocol." But another part, the quiet, decent part, saw the weariness in his posture. Without another word, she reached into her purse, pulled out her last $5 bill, meant for her own lunch, and handed it to him. "Here," she said gently, "for a sandwich." The man stared at it, unmoving for a moment. Ethan Cole, 34, looked at the crumpled bill. A billionaire. One of the most powerful hotel moguls in the country. The majority stakeholder of the Magnolia Resort. The very building Claire Martinez worked in. He had signed deals worth hundreds of millions. And yet here he stood, humbled not by a boardroom, but by the smallest act of kindness from a woman who thought he was homeless. "Thank you," Ethan whispered. "Really, thank you." Claire had officially entered uncharted territory. The man standing before her, muddy, ragged, and radiating lost hiker energy, had just declined her offer to call him a cab and instead asked to book a room. Not ask to use the bathroom, not beg for shelter. He wanted a room at one of the most exclusive resorts on the southeastern coast. Her brain scrambled for logic. Maybe he won the lottery. Maybe he's delusional. Maybe this is a prank. Still, her professionalism remained. "All right," she said carefully. "If you're serious, I'll help you check in." They walked side by side toward the front desk. Claire moved stiffly, and the man, still silent, trailed her with the quiet steps of someone used to moving without drawing attention. His scent followed him, a mix of earth, old sweat, and open trail. It clashed violently with the room's air of Dior cologne and jasmine-scented diffusers. As they approached the desk, Claire gave a discreet nod to Tony, the security guard stationed nearby. Tony responded with a subtle shift, hand close to his earpiece, ready for anything. "Full name?" Claire asked, fingers poised over the keyboard. "Ethan Cole." She typed without looking up. "I'll need a form of ID and a credit card." Ethan set down a battered driver's license and a matte black credit card, dusty from travel. Claire raised an eyebrow. She picked up the card and held it under the light. There were no red flags, but plenty of reasons to pause. It wasn't just any card. It was the elite black card, the kind issued to the top 1% of the 1%. She cleared her throat and swiped it. "Approved." She stared at the screen, then at the card, then back at Ethan. "I still need to verify," she muttered, her tone tightening. "What type of room were you hoping for?" Ethan smiled as if this were his favorite part. "The best one you've got." Claire opened the reservation system. He'll pick the $500 0-cent standard, she thought. "The presidential suite," Ethan said flatly. Claire stopped typing. The air around her seemed to freeze. "The presidential suite is currently $2,800 0 cents per night," she replied, her voice almost whispering. "And we'll need to run prepayment." "Of course." Ethan handed the card again. Claire swiped. "Approved." Again. She looked at the screen, then at Ethan. Something inside her twisted. This wasn't normal. "You're sure this card isn't stolen?" she asked quietly. "We've had situations, people who look like they're in need, but—" "You think I stole it?" Ethan said calmly, raising one eyebrow. "No, I mean—" Claire blushed. "It's just, we've had guests before who didn't seem like the type." "I get it," he said, not offended. "I don't blame you." Claire still wasn't convinced. She picked up the desk phone and called the issuing bank. As she whispered numbers into the receiver, she kept glancing at Ethan like he might vanish. "Yes, I'll hold." What she heard made her sit up straight. VIP client. Credit limit practically unlimited. She hung up slowly. "The card's valid," she mumbled. "Great," Ethan said cheerfully. "Still need to sign, right?" She handed him 3 forms. He signed all of them with matching signatures. Flawless, confident strokes. Claire watched in silence. Who was this man, dressed like he lived in a tent, paying like he owned the hotel? Little did she know, he did. Claire Martinez couldn't sleep that night. She sat curled in her armchair, notebook open, a cold cup of coffee beside her. Her thoughts spun like gears that refused to slow down. Who was Ethan Cole, really? He was too composed to be a vagrant, too reserved to be a lottery winner, and too genuine to be a con artist. But one thing was clear. He had absolutely no idea how to carry himself in a luxury environment. He didn't know how to stand in line, didn't sit straight, didn't recognize when people were silently judging him. Claire didn't know why she cared so much. Maybe it was the way he looked around the lobby like he didn't belong. Maybe it was the fact that she too had once felt like she didn't belong, serving caviar she couldn't pronounce, in heels she couldn't afford. So at 2 a.m., Claire opened her notebook and began to write in bold red letters. Survival Guide, How to Be Rich Without Looking Like a Disaster. She scribbled like a woman possessed. No flip-flops in public hotel areas. Don't ask if water's free. Don't steal tea bags or sugar packets. Don't smuggle fruit from the breakfast buffet. Do not eat pizza with your hands, unless in Naples street markets. Never ask how much every item on the menu costs. He will brag. That's the cheapest thing you can wear. She sat back and smiled. This wasn't just a list. It was her mission, to save one soul from being devoured by a world that didn't teach him how to blend in. The next morning, Ethan walked into the lobby wearing a clean shirt but the same muddy boots, as if silently protesting everything he was being asked to become. Claire was ready. "Mr. Cole," she greeted him, handing over a packet of neatly clipped papers. "I've prepared something for you." Ethan took it, curious. A beginner's guide to not looking broke while accidentally being rich. He laughed, a deep, genuine laugh that echoed across the polished floors. Claire didn't join. And completely serious. "Are you always this serious? Only when someone's about to eat pizza with their hands at a 5-star restaurant." "Wait, there's pizza?" "It's not the point. The point is, you're going to eat it correctly." Claire sat at a corner table. where the soft lighting danced over polished wood and shadows curled like secrets around her fingers. Claire looked like she belonged in a European film. Ethan tried not to tuck the linen napkin into his collar. "Sit up straight," Claire whispered. "Like this?" he asked, stiffening like a tin soldier. Not robotic, confident, relaxed. The pizza arrived, thin crust, golden edges, oregano and cheese melting in harmony. Claire folded her arms, assessing. Ethan picked up the fork and knife. He cut. Slowly, carefully. He brought a bite to his mouth, chewed with thought, then gently dabbed his lips with the napkin. Claire nodded. Impressive. Ethan set the utensils down. He wasn't smiling now. "Has anyone ever taught you this before?" Claire asked softly. He shook his head. "No one ever thought I needed teaching. Because you were good at everything?" "No, because they assumed I knew, or didn't care if I didn't." He paused. "You're the first person who's ever talked to me about how I eat pizza. Not to mock me, not to shame me, but because you care." Claire said nothing. "And that's strange," Ethan continued, "but it makes me feel seen." For the first time in years, he wasn't being admired for wealth, flattered for power, or used for access. For the first time, someone noticed him, just a man, trying not to embarrass himself at lunch. Claire decided it was time to raise the stakes. Teaching Ethan how to eat pizza with a fork was cute, necessary even. But if she wanted to truly help him thrive in elite society, he needed a field test. No notes, no training wheels. So she picked the highest level possible. Dinner at Le Reverie, Charleston's only 3-star Michelin restaurant. Every gesture in that place was deliberate, from the way you folded your napkin to the decibel of your thank you. "Are you ready?" Claire asked, standing with Ethan at the grand glass doors. Ethan wore a charcoal gray suit, tailored and elegant, picked by Claire herself. He looked like a CEO, crisp from collar to cuff. "Are you sure we won't get kicked out?" Ethan adjusted his tie nervously. "Not if you do exactly what I taught you." Claire smiled with quiet pride. Ethan exhaled. "Then, I'm ready to fail." With dignity. The restaurant manager greeted them at the entrance. "Mr. Martinez, a pleasure to have you back." "Thank you. Table 7 if available." "Of course." Ethan kept silent but chuckled inside. He knew this place well. Head chef Marco had once cooked him a private birthday dinner, but tonight he played along, acting like a newbie lucky to breathe the air inside a place like this. They were led to a window table beneath a chandelier of blown crystal. Claire gracefully took her seat. Ethan waited, then sat. "Another point. First rule," Claire whispered. "Don't touch the tablecloth." "Why?" "It's imported linen from Italy. $90, 0 cents a piece. Someone got kicked out once for wiping his hands on it." "Yikes." Ethan raised his hands in mock surrender. "Close call." A waiter brought the menus. Claire gestured for Ethan to go first. "Choose with logic," she said. "Avoid anything with too many syllables or French words you can't pronounce." Ethan grinned. "So ordering the longest named item is how I get fired from the date?" "Exactly." They ordered pan-seared foie gras, wagyu filet with truffle sauce, and a red from Saint-Emilion. When the first course arrived, Ethan stared at the 5 utensils in front of him like a man solving a puzzle. "Let the challenge begin," he muttered. "Outside fork, left. Small knife, right. That's for the foie," Claire whispered, eyes locked on his hands. Ethan followed, a little slow but accurate. Claire nodded, pleased. Everything was going smoothly, until it wasn't. Until it wasn't. A waiter poured wine. Ethan turned slightly to ask Claire something. His elbow clipped the base of the glass. Splash red wine spilled across his suit jacket like a spreading bruise. Claire jumped up. "Oh no!" The suit, immaculate, tailored, expensive, was now soaked in deep crimson across the shoulder. "Give it to me," she said instinctively, tugging the jacket off and blotting with her napkin. Ethan froze. For a second, he just watched her. "I'm so sorry," she muttered. "I should have warned you. This was the nicest piece we found. I budgeted 2 hours. If the stain sets, it's ruined." "It's okay," Ethan said gently. She didn't hear him. "Seriously, I'll try seltzer water, or maybe lemon." "Claire?" His hand caught hers, firm but warm. "I don't care." Claire looked at him, stunned. "It's your money," she said, silently. "That's why I care." But what came out was silence. She sat down, flushed, trying to calm her breath. She wasn't just embarrassed, she was hurt. Why did she care so much? Ethan sat there, looking at the woman across from him. The one who taught him how to hold a fork properly. The one now anxiously dabbing at his jacket like a friend, not an instructor. And for the first time in a very, very long time, someone cared about him. Not his title, not his bank account, not his power. Just him, a clumsy man in a too-fancy restaurant trying to learn. And someone believed he was worth teaching. A week after their elegant night at Les Rivers, Claire Martinez made a decision. It was time to take Ethan Cole to the one place every wealthy person had to survive at some point, Parkstone Plaza, the city's most elite shopping district. With over 40 high-end boutiques, from Hermes and Prada to Tom Ford, this wasn't just a shopping center. It was a battleground of quiet status. "You need proper clothes," Claire said, tapping her tablet like a seasoned assistant. "You can't keep walking around in those mud-crusted boots forever." "Maybe they've outlasted every pair of designer shoes I've ever owned," Ethan replied with a shrug. Claire looked up, deadpan. "And I'm sure they won't get past Louis Vuitton's security gate." They stepped into the first boutique, a softly lit space that smelled like sandalwood and money. Gilded shelves, velvet walls, the kind of quiet where price tags were taboo. Almost immediately, Ethan felt uncomfortable, not because he couldn't afford anything, but because he didn't feel like he belonged. Growing up, Ethan never stepped foot in a place where a shirt cost more than his mom's monthly salary. Even now, as a billionaire, that old feeling clung to him like a shadow. Claire noticed instantly. "Try this," she said, handing him a navy cashmere blazer. Slim fit, clean lines. He held it like it might shatter. "Are we going to get arrested for touching this?" Claire chuckled. "No, but if you tear it, I'll make you pay for it." Ethan gave a dry laugh and disappeared into the fitting room. 10 minutes later, he stepped out. Claire looked up and nearly dropped her phone. The suit fit perfectly. His shoulders, his waist, his posture, it all just worked. But what made her pause wasn't the look. It was the expression in Ethan's eyes. Unsure, vulnerable, almost scared. "Does it look okay?" he asked softly. Claire nodded. "More than okay." Ethan turned to the mirror. For the first time, he saw a man who looked like he belonged in this world. And for the first time, he realized that man was him. "You know," he said slowly, "I could buy everything in this store, but standing here, I still feel like that kid outside the bakery, staring at cookies he can't afford." Claire said nothing. "I thought money would erase that feeling," Ethan continued. "Turns out, it just gave it a better outfit." They spent the entire afternoon exploring shops. Claire showed him how to tell real value from hype, taught him about fabrics, fit, and when marketing was just smoke and mirrors. He tried on a $1,800 0-cent sweater and muttered, "Looks like something my mom knitted." Claire burst out laughing, and Ethan realized, for the first time, shopping wasn't about spending money. It was about discovering who he was with someone he trusted. At the end of the day, Claire said, "Pick one outfit, the one that feels like you." Ethan looked around. Maybe for the first time ever, he didn't feel like a fraud here. He chose the first suit, the navy one, not because of the price, but because it was the first thing he stepped out in and asked, "Do I belong?" Claire nodded as he tried it on again. "Now that's you." Ethan looked at her. "Longer than usual." "Thank you. Not just for helping me shop, but for helping me see I'm not pretending anymore." Claire didn't say anything, but her heart swelled. Not for the suit, not for the price tag, but because she had helped a man find something he thought he'd lost, the feeling that he was enough. The morning began like any other. Claire Martinez woke up at 6:15 a.m., brewed a strong cup of black coffee, tied her hair into a neat bun, and wrapped herself in a light trench coat before stepping into the warm Charleston sun. She stopped by her usual cafe on the corner, her daily 15-minute sanctuary before the hotel buzz kicked in. She ordered her low-foam latte, picked up a copy of the Charleston Times, and sat in her usual seat by the window. She wasn't much of a newspaper reader. Usually she skimmed headlines and flipped through half-heartedly. But today, her eyes froze on one name printed across the front page in bold. The invisibility banner revealed, quote, "The true owner of the Magnolia Resort is Ethan Cole." Her heart stopped. She read the article fast, each word hitting like a blow to the chest. Ethan Cole, age 34, is the primary investor behind more than a dozen luxury hotel developments, including the renowned Magnolia Resort brand across 6 states. In a social immersion experiment, Mr. Cole has been living undercover for over 3 weeks at the Charleston location, experiencing daily life through the lens of an ordinary guest. Hotel staff say they had no idea of his true identity. He was described as modest, quiet, and oddly clueless about high society. Claire stared at the words. Her hands trembled slightly as she gripped the paper. Images flashed in her mind like a cruel highlight reel. Ethan fumbling with silverware, asking her how to hold a wine glass, nervously asking, "Do I look okay in this suit?" She had believed it all. Was it all pretend? Claire stormed into the hotel lobby, her heels clicking like gunshots on marble. She spotted Ethan across the room, calm, composed, casually speaking to the maintenance team, that familiar soft smile still on his lips. But to Claire, everything about him had changed. She walked straight to the front desk, pulled the newspaper from her bag, and slapped it down like evidence in a courtroom. "Did you know?" she asked, voice low and razor sharp. Ethan turned, eyebrows raised. His eyes flicked to the headline. He didn't deny it. "You're the owner," Claire said, her voice rising. "The investor. The one who signs our paychecks. You've been standing here this whole time, pretending." Ethan nodded slowly. "I wasn't planning to hide it forever. I just didn't know when to tell you." Claire let out a dry laugh, bitter and broken. "When? After I taught you how to butter bread? After I made a checklist so you wouldn't embarrass yourself at dinner? Claire, I was the only one who didn't know. Everyone else will praise you now. But me? I talked to you like you were real. Like we were equals." "You were never a pawn," Ethan said, stepping forward. "You're the only person here who saw me for who I am. Not the title, not the balance sheet. Just a man trying." Her voice dropped to a whisper, eyes glassy. "And I was the only one who didn't know the truth." She turned and walked away before he could see the tears forming. She couldn't let him watch the collapse he had caused. She'd let him in. She'd trusted him. She'd believed in his uncertainty, his honesty. Believed that maybe he was like her, a little lost, a little hopeful, just trying to fit in. But no, he had been in control all along. That afternoon, the hotel buzzed like a hive. Staff whispered, guests murmured, phones lit up with articles and gossip. Ethan Cole, the quiet guy with the worn boots, was now the most powerful man in the building. Everyone wanted to impress him. They called him Mr. Cole now, smiled wider, talked softer. Everyone except Claire. She didn't smile. She didn't speak. She kept her distance, her back straight, her face unreadable. She had called him Ethan. She had looked him in the eyes and said, "You belong here." Now those words felt like they'd been stolen from her youth. That night, Ethan stood alone in the lobby, the same space where Claire had once handed him a ridiculous etiquette checklist, where she had fixed his collar and said, "Chin up, you're not hopeless." That Claire wasn't here anymore. No more guidance, no more laughter, no more glances that said, "I believe in you." Only silence. Cold, heavy silence. And Ethan understood, perhaps for the first time in his life, that despite all his wealth and power, he had lost something he could never buy back. Her trust, the Magnolia Resort at night always felt sacred. Quiet lighting dripping from chandeliers, soft carpet muffling footsteps, and the distant sound of jazz piano drifting from the bar like echoes from another life. Claire sat alone in the lounge on the ground floor, a place she often visited after shifts, not to drink but just to breathe. A glass of still water sat untouched before her. Her eyes rested on the large pane of glass overlooking the artificial lake, where city lights shimmered across the surface like broken glass. She didn't think he'd come. She didn't want him to come. But part of her waited. And then, like the universe had been listening, Ethan appeared. He wasn't in a suit, no tie, just that same white shirt with rolled-up sleeves, hair slightly unkempt, face open, almost unguarded. Claire didn't turn, but she knew he was walking toward her. "Can I sit?" he asked, voice barely louder than the humming air conditioner. She hesitated, then gave a single, slow nod. They sat across from each other, one small table, one heavy silence, one storm neither of them wanted to be the first to walk into. "You hate me now," Ethan finally said. Claire gave a soft, bitter smile, eyes still on her glass. "I don't matter enough for that." "You matter more than anyone ever has," Ethan replied, voice almost breaking. "You're the only one who ever told me the truth, even when I didn't want to hear it." Claire turned, her eyes flickering with something sharp, pain, doubt, and a flicker of anger. "You know what I hate the most?" she asked. "It's not that you're rich or that you kept it from me. It's that I believed you were like me." Ethan looked down. "You're not me, Ethan. You don't know what it's like to pretend you're okay every day, to hold on to your dignity in a world that's built to remind you that you're not enough." "Claire," I thought. She paused, that we were two people from two different worlds who somehow met in the middle, a place with no titles, no money, just two people. She looked him straight in the eye. "But your world is too big. I can't reach it." Ethan drew in a deep breath. "I was afraid that if I told you who I really was, you'd stop looking at me the way you did. And that scared me more than any boardroom meeting I've ever been in." Claire didn't speak. "You made me feel smaller, in the best way. Not like someone powerful being served, but like a person being guided, trusted, respected." He raised his eyes. "I wasn't pretending with you, Claire, not for 1 second." "Then why do I feel like a punchline?" Claire asked, finally turning to him. "You lived a double life. You let me believe you were learning how to belong, when in reality, you controlled the entire game." Ethan didn't argue. He only said gently, "I don't know how long it'll take, but if you let me, I want to start again. From the beginning, no pretending, no games." Claire stared at him, deep, unblinking, and for the first time, there was no fire in her eyes. Just a quiet question. "Can I trust you one more time?" They didn't speak after that. The piano played a sad, slow tune from the bar. Outside the window, palm trees swayed gently in the breeze. There was no apology, no forgiveness. But as Claire stood to leave, she said, quietly, as if it cost her something to say it, "I'm on the morning shift tomorrow. If you want to keep learning, be at the desk by 7. Ethan looked up. She didn't wait for his reply, but he knew it wasn't forgiveness. It was a chance. One more. And this time, he wouldn't waste it. 7 a.m. Claire was reviewing the handover notes at the front desk when a voice spoke behind her, quiet and steady. "Any new protocols for today?" She didn't need to turn around to know who it was. Ethan Cole, light blue shirt neatly pressed, hair combed, eyes alert, stood just a step behind her. He wasn't the muddy backpacker anymore, but he wasn't the old Mr. Cole either. He stood like a trainee, polite, open, humble. Claire nodded. "We've got a conference group arriving at 10. Make sure cold water is stocked in the meeting room and the coffee set up earlier than usual." "Got it." Ethan jotted it into a small notebook. Claire glanced at the notepad, startled not by the act of writing, but by the fact that he truly listened. In the days that followed, Ethan didn't miss a single shift. He shadowed the housekeeping team, learning to tuck sheets so tight they looked like glass. He brewed coffee in the kitchen, burned his hand on day one but didn't complain. He helped elderly guests with luggage, greeted everyone like he'd always been part of the staff. No one called him Mr. Cole anymore. They called him Ethan, not because he asked them to, but because he earned it. Claire watched from a distance. She didn't intervene, she didn't speak much, but she saw the changes. Every gesture, every question, every time he stood beside someone, quietly learning how to polish a mirror without streaks. One chaotic morning, an international group arrived 2 hours early. Claire was swamped at the desk. Suddenly, the automated check-in panel froze. Dead screen. System down. "You've got to be kidding me," she muttered, frantically trying to reboot the interface. Ethan was in the hallway, carrying water bottles to the conference room. He spotted the trouble. He didn't ask questions, just set the crate down and hurried over. "Tell me what I can do." Claire was about to decline, but paused. She looked at him, and in that moment, there was no resentment. Just two people trying to keep things afloat. "Take this printed guest list. Call names in order. Keep them calm. I'll fix the system." Ethan nodded without hesitation. For the next 30 minutes, he was a front desk pro, calling names with warm authority, apologizing for delays, even reuniting a couple with their missing luggage before Claire had finished restoring the interface. When everything returned to normal, Claire looked up. Ethan was still there, sleeves rolled, shirt damp with sweat, smiling like he belonged. She laughed, her first real laugh in days. Not bad for a billionaire. Ethan shrugged. "I had a great teacher." Claire looked at him, finally without her guard up, realizing this was no longer a lesson. This was a partnership. That night, long after the guests had gone to bed, Claire passed through the lobby and spotted Ethan kneeling at the base of the stairwell, quietly wiping each marble step. "You don't have to do all that," she said. He looked up, smiling. "I used to think running a hotel meant making decisions in a boardroom. Now I know real leadership is knowing who scrubs the tile you walk on." Claire stepped beside him, took the cloth from his hand. "You're changing." Ethan didn't argue. "Because someone made me want to be the best version of myself." Claire didn't respond, but for the first time since the headline, she didn't walk away. They sat side by side on the steps, under warm golden light. No titles, no roles, just two people learning how to meet each other halfway through the walls they'd once built. Charleston Festival Week had arrived. The Magnolia Hotel bloomed with life. Fresh flowers in every hallway, gentle violin melodies in the air, and the scent of jasmine misted lightly each morning. It was the busiest time of the year, and every staff member operated like clockwork. Claire had no room for emotions. The schedule was relentless. Guests came and went in waves, but even in the chaos, her eyes still drifted again and again to one corner of the room, where Ethan stood, teaching a new staff member how to fold napkins into swans. Calm, focused, present. He wasn't the rich man playing poor anymore. He wasn't a boss in disguise. He was just part of the team, and sometimes, though she tried not to admit it, part of her world. That afternoon, during final prep for the wine tasting gala, Claire noticed a missing name on the assignment chart. The main wine table was unmanned. She was about to call for backup when a voice came from behind. "I can do it." Ethan, wearing a crisp black shirt, bow tie perfectly in place, standing there like he'd waited for this moment. "What do you know about wine?" Claire asked, half skeptical, half amused. "Not much," he said honestly, "but I read 3 books from the hotel library and watched the 4 videos you emailed last week." She froze. He remembered? "You once said, you don't need to be perfect, just serious." She stared at him a beat longer, then nodded. "Fine. But if someone asks about Syrah tannins, don't pull out your phone." Ethan smiled. Not cocky, not defensive, just honest. That night, he did everything right. He poured with grace, just the right tilt of the wrist. He answered questions with sincerity, not reciting facts but asking back, learning, listening. Claire watched him from a distance, and inside her chest warmth stirred, followed by cold doubt. Two winds colliding. She had been hurt. She'd once felt like the extra in someone else's carefully written story. But tonight, the script was gone. What remained was Ethan, under soft lights, doing a simple task with the quiet dedication of a man who wanted to be forgiven. After the event ended, Claire was in the supply room double-checking inventory when she heard familiar footsteps. Ethan, he stood at the doorway, didn't enter, didn't force a moment, just asked, "Are you still mad at me?" Claire closed the logbook, turned around. She looked at him for a long time before answering. "I'm not mad anymore. Do you still see me as someone who lied?" She hesitated, then said, "I see someone who made a mistake, but stayed and tried to fix it." Ethan nodded, then stepped closer. "Claire," his voice was low, sure. "I never said this before, but I think I know why I came to this hotel. Not to pretend to be normal, but to understand what makes a place feel like home." His eyes found hers, clear, unflinching. "And I realize it's not the presidential suite. It's any place where you're the one standing at the front." Claire felt her heart skip. She wanted to look away, but she didn't. He wasn't the billionaire. He wasn't the student. He was Ethan. And for the first time, there was no distance between them. He stepped a little closer, eyes still locked. "So will you be at the desk tomorrow at 7?" she asked softly. Ethan smiled. "As long as you are." Claire nodded, an exhale, a quiet surrender. After a long, careful walk, not a love confession, not a reset, a door opening, just enough.